By the way, I made it through the day. By Franken Jolly. Summary. Lost your dad who hadn't been a good dad too? The question left her mouth almost on its own, even when there was no actual need to ask at all. It was obvious, both from his words and the way Yosuno had directed Aya to him. Pretty much, Atsushi confirmed, nodding. Well, in my case, it wasn't my literal dad, but sure as hell he was the closest thing I've ever had to one. And he was awful, Aya continued. For BSD Gen Week 2026, Day 4. Grief/Mourning. Portrait of a Father, Aya's version. Prologue. Yosuno. If you want to talk with someone who also has recent experience with losing a father you feel conflicting emotions about, you can speak to Atsushi-kun when we get back home. And me, she shrugged. The man in question wasn't exactly like a father and is still very much alive, but if it helps, I do get what it's like. Being mad, how things are more complicated than simply being mad. The whole thing, sort of. A question instantly struck Aya's mind, impossible to ignore until she let it out. So, you also ever hoped he would change? Because that was another upsetting thing about it. Him being gone meant he was never going to treat her better again. Honestly? Yosuno made a small pause between that and the actual answer. I used to, a bit. It ended soonish for me, though. She fell silent again, then spoke in a lower tone, still clearly meant for Aya to hear and Aya alone, no matter if there was no one else in the vicinity. I do think about how it could have been back then and right now. I do too. 1. Atsushi. Atsushi-kun, Aya started out, tugging at the boy's sleeve. Can I talk to you? When you're not busy, Avi, it may take a bit. Oh, of course, Aya-chan. What is it? The way he pronounced the chan was pretty funny, by the way, as if he wasn't sure that was the best bet to refer to her or not. In fact, were she less focused on the topic she wanted to bring up, Aya would have commented on it. It's a bit of a long thing, though, she first replied, making sure he actually had time before opening the can of worms that had gotten her to seek his company and conversation. Not like that would be a rare occasion, though, since she had started becoming a pretty regular presence in the agency's office by virtue of Kunikita taking her in whatever strange but sweet arrangement he had with Bram when it came to Aya's care. Half of the time she slept in dorms, and it wasn't uncommon for a member to accompany her to school, especially Naomi, since her high school was close by. But Atsushi and her had never talked about a topic as deep and difficult either. Well, if you don't mind helping me take some gardening supplies to the rooftop, we can go and talk there, he offered, with a polite smile to match. Had it been someone else, like Dazai for example, she would have taken the suggestion to help as a way to slack off, even a little. Again, like Dazai for example. It wasn't like she didn't like him at all, but Aya was aware of the thing he had going on with Kunikita, and someone had to play the judgy role towards his partners. But it was Atsushi, who refused clear nonsense tasks, but always carried out his legit share of work with no issue, so... Besides, she could recognize an opening to go talk in a quieter place when she saw one, too. Sure, thanks. Neither the way to the rooftop nor the task took very long, and so in a matter of less than 10 minutes, the two of them were already there and free to go on about the topic. Still, Aya needed a second to order her thoughts. So, I talked to Yosuno-sensei. She started out, fidgeting with the hem of her skirt, then one of her hairpins, and she said I could come talk to you, 'cause... Having said it out loud once had helped, but saying it twice was turning out to be just a tad less difficult than then. I know my dad's dead, since the vampirism stuff, that is, well, that's when it happened, not when I realized, even if I've been suspecting it since shortly after, 'cause no one could find him. Also, she didn't reply with words at first, but let out a brief sigh instead, not in exasperation, though. I see, he then said, with a smile which had a smidge of sadness to it. She didn't tell me the whole thing, but mentioned you'd made come to me for, well, complicated relationship with dad stuff. I'd say advice, but I don't think I have much of that. But I get what you're feeling right now. Lost your dad who hadn't been a good dad too? The question left her mouth almost on its own, even when there was no actual need to ask at all. It was obvious, both from his words and the way Yosuno had directed Aya to him. Pretty much, Atsushi confirmed, nodding. Well, in my case, it wasn't my literal dad, but sure as hell he was the closest thing I've ever had to one. And he was awful, Aya continued. And he was awful. He lost no time in repeating, as if there were any doubt there when it couldn't be further from the opposite. He was, and he died, too. Atsushi also added, sighing. He died when, in an accident, when he came here to congratulate me. I mean, it's not like you caused it, was her immediate response, to which the boy simply shrugged. Oh, no, I don't feel guilty over it. It's just, I've never felt like that, ever. And I guess that's the same for you, the mix between relief and grief. Atsushi likely hadn't intended it to rhyme, but it happened anyway. In my case, I tried to drown the grief, 'cause with how big of an ass, with how terrible he was with me. It was funny, by the way, the effort put in not swearing in front of her. I was set only on making room for relief. Joy, even. Aya nodded. She was following him, and easily on top of that. I'm more like on the opposite side of that. He stinked at being a dad ever since my mama and sis died, but he was all I had until the pursuit of justice had made her cross paths with Kunikita, then Bram, then everyone else. Until I had all of this. She knew there was no need to explain. Atsushi had experienced not having anyone else until meeting the agency after all. Well, what can I say except it, stinks? He said, sighing yet again, this time deeper than the previous one. Then, his expression softened. Mourning is already its own can of worms, and this is even worse. But also, not being alone helps. Yeah, she couldn't help but easily agree with that. I wish Kuni-chan wasn't avoiding telling me, for starters. Kunikita-san means well, but yeah. If you ask me, though, I think he's not told you yet because he's still holding on to the hope of finding him. It made sense, but also months had passed, so said hope wasn't even flimsy. It was pretty much non-existent, especially since when bringing up the topic with others such as Yosuno or Atsushi, no one denied how impossible it was at that point. Still, it made sense and it was still somewhat sweet despite everything. He could have also been trying to prepare her for the confirmation of bad news, though. Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Atsushi-kun, Aya ended up saying after a moment in silence. I told this to Yosuno-sensei too, but don't know. I think the worst part of him being dead is how now there's no chance of him becoming better, you know? I do. Of course he did, based on what he had mentioned about his own sort of father dying on the way to finally doing something nice for him. And, by the way, if you'd like to talk to someone who's on the same boat as us, but with still alive parents, I can tell him. 2. Tachihara. Strictly speaking, I already knew Tachihara. They had met a bunch of times before, especially at the cafe, or during her times at the Okutagawa siblings' apartment, since he was dating Gin and happened to go around the place like it belonged to him. To Okutagawa's dismay, by the way. Of course, none had ever engaged in something as complicated as sharing their respective struggles as their parents' kid with each other, though it had been the same with Atsushi. And yet... Tachi-kun. Speaking of the Okutagawa's place, that was where the conversation ended up happening, specifically in the kitchen. Early-ish in the morning as it was, none of the siblings were asleep yet, and despite Atsushi having spent the night there too, he had also left for work almost an hour and a half prior. Atsushi-kun told me I could talk to you too. Oh yeah, he mentioned it, Tachihara quickly confirmed. Sure thing, also. Then, after he had finished setting up the coffee maker to do his work, he turned towards her, nodding. So, parents that sucked. In the same way as seeing Atsushi make a point of not swearing in front of her, Tachihara not caring about it greatly amused her. Yeah, basically. Well, in my case, I'm pretty sure they never liked me. I mean, my big bro was starting high school when I was born. That sounds like I straight up was an unplanned baby. He then shrugged. Don't know how or why they went along with it, though. But point is, they did. Or I wouldn't be here talking to you. And I don't exactly remember being a baby, but I do remember Shun telling me to be strong the first time he had to leave for long. Because he was the only one in that house that actually gave a damn about and cared for me. I had tried to imagine her sister as her only caretaker while her parents did little to nothing. And it was awful. Not like her father setting up impossible standards for Aya to follow after said sister and their mother had passed away wasn't. Just a different kind of awful. And he didn't come back, right? Exactly. Tachihara nodded. So I was stuck with my parents at 5. Guess that's when the bulk of our similarity starts. Am I wrong? Nah, you're not. Aya quickly shook her head. I was a bit older, but still. Well, and in my dad's case, he changed completely. Like, first he got mad and sad, which I get because I was like that too. But then, it was like I wasn't me anymore, not to him. Like, all that mattered was that I became as perfect as they'd been. And you can't be more perfect than someone who's dead. Tachihara continued for her. You can try, and still won't be enough for the people comparing you to them. Because now, they're not here anymore. People put them on high as fuck pedestals impossible to get to. He then sighed. That's why I got out of there as soon as I could. And why I tried as hard as I could to be the opposite of him. Like a fuck you to them, you know? Yeah, I get it. In her case, I had done everything she could to adhere to what her father had expected of her without letting go of the kind of girl she herself wanted to be, even if those overlapped quite a lot. Needless to say, it had been a struggle, and she wouldn't be lying if she said she missed those times. You ever miss them, though? Despite everything, Aya did. But she also had half a mind to figure out that might not be the case for everyone. Especially comparing the two of them when her loss was recent, and he spoke like he hadn't seen his own parents in years. Kinda, sometimes, the boy shrugged again. Nowhere nearly as much as I miss my big bro, though. I get you there, too. Epilogue, Kunikita and Bram. Despite having gathered enough courage and resolve to do that time before, in the moment of truth, I have faltered for a second. It was fine, though, since she had counted on the possibility of it happening. Either things would be fixed by taking a bit more time, or she could find another way. Luck, though, was on her side. There's something I'd like to tell you, Kunikita started out, side-glancing at Bram before looking back at her. Both of us, actually. But since this was my idea, I'm the main responsible for it. He just went along with it because I asked him to. Indeed, Bram added, earning himself a still nervous snicker from Aya, and a not that serious eye roll from Kunikita. That sounds like treason, Stoker-san. Treason or not, that wasn't where he focused, for shortly after he was back on track with the original topic. I should have told you sooner, but I wanted to spare you from more pain, and as long as there was a chance things could end up differently, Luck was definitely on her side, since what Kunikita was hinting at was precisely the same thing Aya wanted to talk about. You ain't finding my dad because he's dead, right? She finished for him, her voice trembling a little despite already knowing. I figured, Kuni-chan. Kunikita let out a brief gasp, then simply, he said, I'm sorry, kid. More words of apology, attempts at consoling her, and proper arrangement of what was going to be her permanent situation with them would come sooner rather than later. But in the immediate future, what followed was Aya getting wrapped up in the warmest hug, initiated by Bram, and including the three of them. I know I usually don't talk at the end of my videos, but I just wanted to apologize for being gone for so long. The last video I posted was, like 3 months ago? Ooh! Yeah, that's really bad. I'm so sorry, guys. Summer came up, and I completely forgot about this little thing I've been doing. But I'll definitely try to get back on track with this. So sorry. I hope you guys enjoyed this fic. Again, thank you so much to the author, Frank and Jolly, for allowing me to make a podfic of this. I'm still trying to figure out a way to post my Podfics on AO3. I need to find a way to do that though. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye bye.